Well, I grew up in the military. My father was in the Army for 20 years and pretty much was born with an ID card. Growing up, we moved from base to base, and um, it was very, my father was an officer, so it was very strict. We had, certain procedures that we had to follow. If you were on time, you were late. But no matter where we moved, my mom was always involved in the church. So I was always Sunday school, going to church every Sunday. Um, but during that time, even as a young child, I could still feel that attraction to women. But because growing up in the church, saying, being gay is wrong, I kind of was at a conflict there. So. When I got to high school, I had one boyfriend in high school. I was too involved in my sports, sports. Father retired and moved down to Florida, and for the 2 years there, didn't have a boyfriend. Uh, Went to USF, started in '98, and for the first 2 years, I didn't have a boyfriend either. Um, but at that time, I would still, you know, find myself being attracted to females, and that was my first time having an experience with someone um, in college, and it didn't feel like a phase. It felt like this is like I'm truly being me. So knowing that my mom wouldn't accept it and still being part of the church and even teaching Sunday school, um, it was definitely the conflict was even stirred up even more right before I met my boyfriend in college. When I started dating my uh, boyfriend in college, it was interesting. He's from Brazil and very, very liberal family, and it was different because my family's very conservative. My parents are both conservative, so it was very like it was kind of like, oh, this is interesting here. I've never been able to experience this, but then I, go back home and I have my own little felt. Eventually, I felt like my sheltered life, being kind of sheltered from everything. But we ended up getting married. So we got married in 2002, and so we've been together for almost 3 years before we got married. And he went into the military. We moved around. We lived in D.C., Key West, Hawaii, and living in Key West um, was where a lot of the turmoil in my marriage and just I guess more of my inner conflict really surfaced because Key West is definitely a place that's not conservative, very liberal, and they have like you have the rainbow side of town, and then you have like the touristy bar area. Um, but Key West was definitely the part where I started playing more flag football, and it was an international sport. It was an international tournament, so we had teams from all over the world coming in, all over Florida, and that was definitely where I was a lot of concentrated, a lot of lesbians, and I kind of felt at home, like I didn't have to pretend to be somebody else. And in 2006, we moved to Hawaii, um, and we'd already been married for a couple years, and I wanted kids. I got married when I was 22, 23, 24. I said, I want some kids now, and he wasn't ready for kids, and I'm like, well, okay, so played that wife role, played the military wife role, the officer's wife role, and we moved to Hawaii. By 2008, after some bad choices on his side, uh, we decided to split. And I left Hawaii in 2008, and that's when I moved back to Tampa. And then that's kind of where my life just kind of almost did a 180, where I was just kind of tired of doing what everyone else wanted me to do, and I didn't feel like I didn't have to live under this mask anymore, and that's kind of when that mask came off. So when I moved back here, I kept in contact with some of the ladies that played football in those Key West tournaments, and some had expressed interest in me, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm still living, I was living in my mom's house. She had some different properties, and I felt still I was under her bubble. I wanted to be respectful towards her because going to church and people that she associated with, I didn't want to be the one, giving her a bad name. Um, so eventually I dated this girl on the down low. No one knew. Well, actually, some of my teammates who I could, some of my friends who I could come out to little by little, who I trusted, I could tell them. Um, but between there, I was still kind of like, once that relationship ended, I was, I felt like, what, maybe this isn't right. Maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. So I definitely went through that stage where, did the online dating, and with men, and it was almost going through this phase like, am I happy? Am I happy? And I just did some incredibly stupid stuff. I wasn't happy with, my choices when I think back about it now. But I still wasn't happy. But I did realize that I was a little bit more happy when I was with the girl that I was dating in Fort Lauderdale. So eventually I said enough is enough. And about a year ago at a football tournament, I reconnected with a girl that I had met when I was living in Key West in the tournament, and we've started dating. But I finally came out to some of my other friends. I was at a field day activity, and my mother came up, and I was just doing my having fun and doing my job that I volunteered for. And I told her, oh yeah, Mickey's, my friend's going to be coming up. And she goes, she's coming up? Yeah, just for a day. She just has some time. She goes, what, are you guys dating? And I looked at my mom, and I said, yes. And the look on her face, like her face literally just dropped. It's almost like in a cartoon where the face, her eyes was open. And my uncle was in the car, and she just said, we'll talk later, and she just turned around, no goodbye, no hug, nothing, and just left. And the next day, she has a video, and hands a video cassette, VHS, and you look through the title and it says, are you really gay? And that's when I knew that this is where it's not an internal struggle anymore. Now it's going to be something that I have to go through with my mom. So anytime I mentioned I was seeing somebody, since 2010, my mom would automatically say, is it a guy or a girl? So she knew of it. So back in November, when I met my partner, I actually met her before my sister's wedding. So I was actually in Vegas, and we actually went to the Grand Canyon, just her and I. So she knows I was on the phone, and I said, oh, just someone I've been talking to. And she goes, is it a guy or a girl? And I said, well, it's a girl. And she goes, okay. And we got into this conversation, and she says, oh, I believe that relationship should be a guy and a girl. And I said, okay. And she goes, your sister's married, your brother's getting married, he's engaged. My best friend is a female, but you don't see me sleeping with her. I love her, but I'm not sleeping with her. And I told my mom then, we really had never got into that in-depth conversation, which is something we kind of avoided since 2010. But last year, I said, I've always been that way. I've always had an attraction to women. It's not been something new. And the funny thing is, my ex-husband knew. So, yes, we had threesomes. He liked, having other women involved. I don't know if it was because of me or because, he could have his fun too. But, my mom didn't know about a lot of this stuff. And when I finally told her, she was like, oh, really? So it's something that it's not just popped up in my life. It's been there. It's just, she just didn't know. So I told her, and, she's known. She knows about my partner, and, we're living together now. So we've been together now for 8 months, and going strong, happy. But it's still kind of, it hurts knowing that, my mom will get together with my brother and his new wife, or then fiance, and my sister and her new husband, and they're hanging out at their house in Riverview, but I don't get a call. my mom will say, oh yeah, you're coming. I have specific, spot for just 4 people, knowing that if I were to bring B, that'd be a fifth one. Um, so it's definitely a point where they're, making sure like don't make the rest of the family feel uncomfortable, and which is okay because I've come down to the point. I said, well, I'm actually happier than I've ever been. Um, I, why can't I love a female if a man can love a female, and I love that song that's come out was the same love, one love, and he thought he was gay because he could draw and he kept his room clean. Um, the part where she keeps you warm, and you're like, you know what, your partner keeps you warm. Why can't I have my partner to keep me warm? So some people know. One of my good friends who knew I was married, and she said to me, she goes, "You're not gay. You were married." I looked at her. I didn't say anything, but then I sent her a text the next day, and I said, "You please don't tell me what I am or what I'm not. That's for me to decide." I knew she didn't mean any disrespect. It's just kind of being open and just saying, hey, what was on her mind, which is fine. But now she's like, okay, I'm sorry. I realized what I said was wrong, and that's done and over with. But I feel comfortable with who I'm with and what I'm doing, and I told my mom, hey, I may not be there for Thanksgiving because I'm going to be with B. We're going to be on vacation. And, she said, well, if you decide you're not going to go on vacation, today actually was the first time she said, well, we're going to come along. You can invite your roommate. So today was actually kind of almost a breakthrough because that was the first time she said you can bring your roommate. She didn't say girlfriend. She said roommate, which is fine. Whatever she has to tell herself to accept it, because I think she's learning to realize, hate the sin, not the sinner. And you may not like the situation, but you still, that unconditional love that she preaches, she's stuck with me. With DOMA being overturned, actually it's funny, we talked about it, and we said, all right, 5 years, and I'm like, 5 years? I'm like, let's just go with the flow right now. We're happy. We're going things, and for me, it's, I used to think it was, being married was all important. It was just an amazing thing you do before God. And eventually, I got to the point where it was just a piece of paper. But now that I found someone that I could, really care about after 4 years, I definitely, after 5 years, would I get married? Yes.